There is a shady UN outfit that probably none of you have ever heard of that is right now working to impose, to normalize, to mainstream weirdo New Age spirituality on children in schools all around the world using something called social and emotional learning. Stay tuned and I'll tell you more. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Deep State. I'm your host, Alex Newman. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, I'm in the studio here at the New American headquarters. It's an honor to be here and an honor to spend some time with you. So I came across this obscure little UN agency within UNESCO. UNESCO is, of course, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And the more I dug, the more flabbergasted I became. This is an institute that is based in India. And it is working to transform education all over the world to impose absolutely bonkers, radical, extreme political and spiritual values on little children all over the world. It's happening under the guise of something called social and emotional learning. Sometimes it's called SEL. And believe it or not, this is a scheme to brainwash children, and it was hatched at a New Age organization founded by a really rich weirdo who was a self-professed follower of Alice Bailey, who's of course the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company. We've talked about Alice Bailey on this program before. She is was a leading theosophist. She was communicating with spiritual entities she referred to as ascended masters, and they were giving her all kinds of secret information, special revelations. Of course, if you read your Bible, you know these are not ascended masters. They are demons. And they were giving her weird stuff like a book called Education in the New Age that she served as a channel for. And it's absolutely bonkers stuff. So that's the kind of the background on all this. Now, this organization that I'm talking about is called the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. It's called the UNESCO MGIEP for short. It is absolutely dominated by pagans, commies, New Agers, and psychiatrists, shrinks, quacks, whatever you want to call them. It's based in India, and it has global reach. In fact, if you go to their website, they are bragging that they're guiding education policy, that they're getting this stuff in the schools all over the world. And I encourage you to spend some time on their website before they start taking all this stuff down. When I first exposed the Fetzer Institute's role in the development of SEL, Castle, the premier SEL organization, they had right on the history that this idea came out of the Fetzer Institute. And when I exposed that in a column that I wrote, they quickly took that down from their website. But we're going to save all this stuff. We have saved all this stuff, so even if they disappear, it will keep it. But now, at first glance, if you look at this stuff, people who aren't familiar with the manipulation of language that's used by these New Agers and these commies, you might not even notice the warning signs. For example, if you go to the website, they say they're working to make children more kind through their programs. That way the world will be more peaceful, more sustainable. And who could be against peaceful, kind, sustainable world? I mean, we all want that, don't we? Just like SEL promoters in the United States, though, where this crazy idea came from, the UN outfit is arguing that children need to be kind of emotionally groomed, emotionally manipulated by these programs to be able to form healthy relationships, to be able to regulate their emotions. And you wonder, how did human children for thousands of years ever form healthy relationships or regulate their emotions without these kooks teaching them SEL stuff in the classroom, right? Obviously, folks, this is cover for something much, much darker. If you look at the individuals involved, what you will find is that there are, as I mentioned, commies everywhere. Right? The institute was actually launched by a commie. She was at the time the head of UNESCO, Irina Bokova. We spent a lot of time exposing her at the New American. She hates me with a passion, which I kind of wear as a badge of honor. I don't annoy her just to be a pest. I just expose her and what she's done. She was a high-ranking official in the mass murdering dictatorship that enslaved Bulgaria. Slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people, this communist regime that she served. She was actually acting foreign minister. That's how high up the pecking order she got. And of course, she's not the only communist who was involved in this thing. Another commie involved in this, Rosa Utenbayeva, she was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the deputy head of government for the mass murdering Soviet Kyrgyz Republic, the communist dictatorship in Kyrgyzstan, before becoming the president of the Soviet National Commission of UNESCO, and then eventually taking a leadership role at this UNESCO MGIEP. Right, so you got commies, then you got a whole bunch of pagans and New Agers who think we need a one world spiritual order. Again, they've been absolutely instrumental. One guy you can look at is Dr. Karan Singh. He's an Indian politician and also an advocate of global spirituality who was actually the chair of UNESCO MGIEP's governing board before he died. Other posts he held, he was the co-chair of the ridiculous World Commission on Global Consciousness and Spirituality. You should go look at this organization, the World Commission on Global Consciousness and Spirituality. It is straight from the pit of hell. He served there alongside former UN Assistant Secretary General Robert Miller, the founder of global education, the father of global education is how he's often described. He's also, unsurprisingly, a disciple of Lucifer magazine publisher, Lucifer Publishing Company founder, Alice Bailey, the lady who was talking to demons. Okay, in fact, in his he created the World Core Curriculum, and you can still see this on the UN website. They say it should be taught in all the schools of the world. This weirdo Robert Miller, who served alongside Dr. Singh, he says openly in the foreword of the teacher's manual that this is based on the teachings of Alice Bailey and her demon, Javal Kul, the Tibetan teacher. So Dr. Singh, again, he led UNESCO's MGIEP before dying. He was also a key speaker at the 12th World Confluence of Humanity, Power, and Spirituality. Its logo claims that it is, through its different representations, serves humanity by making them aware that the final aim for all human beings is the path to enlightenment. That's interesting. I personally prefer the Westminster Shorter Catechism. Right? What is the final end of man? The chief end of man, well, it is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. So obviously we have very divergent views here with these New Agers. Now, in an interview, Dr. Singh says that, in my mind, the significance of these conferences is simply this, that we realize the essential unity of all religions. Sorry, Dr. Singh, but no. Dr. Singh also has a long background in family planning. In fact, he served as the Minister of Family Planning during the brutal, the barbarian forced sterilization campaigns undertaken in India by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. This was under the guise, again, of family planning. They were running around rounding up millions of people, taking them to be forcibly sterilized with help and backing from the UN Population Fund, from the World Bank. They literally sterilized millions of poor people, millions of lower caste citizens. India's got this weird caste system where you could be like an untouchable and you're forever an untouchable, or you could be a higher caste. It's totally bizarre. Anyways, that's about 15 times more people than the mass murdering National Socialist Party, the Nazis in Germany, sterilized. Thousands of victims were killed during this procedure in India under the leadership, again, of Dr. Singh, the guy who served as the chairman of this Mahatma Gandhi Institute on Education. Another leading advocate of this UN-backed global spirituality, who's also deeply involved in the population control agenda, is Dr. Aza Karam. She's the head of Religions for Peace. This is a global alliance of self-styled religious leaders. It includes self-proclaimed Christians and full-blown pagans. It's funded by the UN, by the U.S. State Department, billionaire globalists like George Soros, the Rockefellers, etc. And before taking over as the Secretary General of this thing, Dr. Karam worked at the UN Population Fund. Of course, we've talked about here before the congressional testimony that exposed the role of the UN Population Fund in mass murder, in perpetrating forced abortions in China under the guise of enforcing its barbaric one-child policy. So this gives you a sense of some of the people who are involved in this movement, guys. These people are sick in the head. They believe that there are too many human beings and that we need to brainwash children to stop having children. Okay. Even the namesake of UNESCO, right, the Mahatma Gandhi Institute on Education. Now, Gandhi had views on religion that would be really troubling, I think, to Orthodox believers of any religion, including his own religion, Hinduism, right? He said he prizes Hinduism above all other religions, but he also was very much a one-world religion kind of guy. Now, Dr. Richard Davidson, he's with the Center for Healthy Minds, the World Economic Forum, the Wisdom 2.0 Conference, friend of the Dalai Lama, etc. He's also on the governing board of the MGIEP at UNESCO. During the MGIEP's 2020 Rethinking Learning, they chose this Buddhist monk, Mathieu Ricard, to write the foreword. And here's what he said. One of the groundbreaking developments in neuroscience has been to show that any form of training changes the brain and consequently our ways of being. Our brains remain pliant throughout life, but are particularly malleable during young age. Over the last 20 years, scientists and meditators have collaborated to advance new fields of research such as contemplative neuroscience, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. Various kinds of interventions for cultivating these basic human qualities in young children have been designed, tested, and evaluated, such as the kindness curriculum devised at the Center for Healthy Minds by a team guided by neuroscientist Richard Davis. So the MGIEP also has these things, a magazine. It's called Blue Dot. And they got one called Rewiring the Brain to be Future Ready. Folks, these people want to rewire the brains of your children. They're telling you so on their website. They believe in this one world spirituality. The commies, the mass murdering communists have their fingerprints all over this. And folks, you need to go read this stuff. Right? We don't have time to get into all the details, but you need to read this stuff. Here's a quote. It says, mindfulness is known as one process that can intentionally rewire a reactive neural circuitry into one that chooses kind and wise responses, right? Folks, listen to them. When they say they want to rewire the brains of your children, they're not kidding, okay? They're telling you the truth. It goes on to say, our children are active change makers who can help us grow up and become a more conscious, aware, and mindful society. Okay, now artificial intelligence is a big part of this as well. In fact, UNESCO and the UN are big on bringing artificial intelligence into the education sphere. In fact, in 2019, they had a conference in Beijing, of all places, because why not? The capital of the most murderous dictatorship that has ever existed in human history. And they came up with this document on artificial intelligence in education. Now, we'll save the details of that for another day, but folks, these people are absolutely nuts. Now, officially, a key focus of this UN Education Institute is achieving sustainable development, and in particular, Agenda 2030's Sustainable Development Goal 4.7. It's a subsection of the 17 goals of the SDGs. If you haven't watched our episode of Behind the Deep State on the Sustainable Development Goals, go back and watch it. It's basically a global roadmap to tyranny. They want a one world kind of technocratic government where you're a slave and they have all the power. Now, they themselves have been pretty open about this. Right? The head of the UN General Assembly at the time, Peter Thompson, he called this Agenda 2030 the master plan for humanity. That's his terminology, not mine. The head of the UN at that time, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, said this was the global declaration of interdependence. And boy, did the commies love it, right? Mass murdering Marxist genocidal dictator of Zimbabwe said, it's going to usher in this wonderful, brave new world. You had the communist Chinese dictatorship bragging that they played a crucial role in developing Agenda 2030. And if you read it, you'll see why, right? It's about global wealth redistribution, abortions for everybody, vaccines for everybody, shut up and pay attention and obey us. Right now, goal number 4 deals with education. And they actually say right in there that all the children of the world need to be so brainwashed that they will not only submit to this madness, but they will promote it. Here's the text. It says, all learners need to acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote, right? Not just submit to, but promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, right? If you know what they mean by sustainable lifestyles, you know that's really troubling, right? No meat, no babies, no carbon dioxide emissions, right? These people are insane. Human rights, right? Which when the UN says human rights, think exactly the opposite of what our founding fathers in America said. Our founding fathers said, God gave us rights. Government exists to secure these rights. The UN says the UN gives you rights. The UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives you rights. And by the way, none of these rights may be used contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations, says Article 21. And also, when they talk about rights, they mean like your right to a free house, which means really the government has to rob you so that they can give you a free house, right? So the UN's vision of human rights, totally opposed to actual human rights. They talk about gender equality, which is just UN speak for radical feminism, smashing the family, forcing women out of the home and make them go work at some jobs so that their children can be brainwashed by government schools. Promotion of a culture of peace and nonviolence, a global citizenship, which you can't have a one world government without global citizens. And of course, appreciation of diversity, which again means just smashing Christian civilization. So in other words, every child on the planet, folks, needs to be so brainwashed, so indoctrinated that they won't just submit to this, that they will actually promote it, okay? And that's what they say, that this is their mission. They are in charge of getting this UN Sustainable Development Goal accomplished. Now, I want to show you a video I pulled off of their website, folks. It is creepy, beyond creepy, but watch this real quick. All right, folks, so you just saw that video. It is really, really creepy. A lot of red flags there, right? One of them, you've got these textbooks that flash by on the screen, and one of them is blinded by faith. Blinded by faith. Isn't that interesting? Blinded by faith. I wonder what they mean. Well, Alice Bailey had this bizarre idea given to her by her demons that the worst of all the heresies is this heresy of separateness, she said, which, of course, the Bible says that God's people should be separate, that they should be holy, that they should be in the world but not of the world. And so you're blinded by faith, man. How dare you not want to be part of this? How dare you want to come out of Babylon and do your own thing and not be part of this? So then when also in the video, you see one of the students in that video logs onto her virtual platform, and you see some really interesting options there, right? One of them is climate change and ethics. We did episodes recently when I was in Egypt talking about the new system of ethics that the UN wants to impose under the guise of saving the climate, right? They even came out with this new 10 commandments, etc. Then you've got migration and conflict. Ooh, isn't that interesting, right? And so they click the math option, and then you get 3 sub-options, and one of them is carbon footprint, right? You can't have a technocracy without enforced scarcity. And so if you have a carbon budget, a ration card for how much CO2 you can emit, you may be able to eat 3 ounces of beef per month for now, right, until later. So this is what they're doing, folks. At the end of the video, you see these UN Institute sums up its aims. They're going to change mindsets, right? Your mindset is wrong. How dare you be one of these people blinded by faith, clinging to your guns and your Bible, right? You're just terrible. Also, challenging norms, right? Who put the UN in charge of challenging norms? And exactly which norms are you going to be challenging? Is it our 10 Commandments norms? Is it our family values norms? Which norms do you think we have put you in charge of challenging? And then transforming education for humanity. Frankly, who put you in charge of transforming education? Right? I never agreed to say that the UN should transform education. Who do you think you are? Right? This is absolutely crazy, folks. And keep in mind, this stuff is not just happening at some obscure institute in India, okay? These ideas are then disseminated to government schools all over the world through policy papers, through textbook publishers, through curriculum, through resources, right? Bill Gates, of course, signed an agreement with UNESCO in 2004, and the agreement was, and Phyllis Schlafly posted this online, they're going to create global standards, global curricula, global teacher training programs, global technology systems to make it all possible, right? And ultimately, this institute, they actually tell you what they want to do, right? They say they're going to involve the mass mobilization of youth towards sustainable development. What if I don't want my children mobilized for sustainable development? Who do you think you are to mobilize my children, right? What is this, Hitler Youth or something? You're going to mobilize children to accomplish your crazy political goals? And they say that's central to their mission. Right? They need to mobilize the world's youth to achieve the UN Agenda 2030. I never agreed to the UN Agenda 2030. In fact, our Senate, the U.S. Senate, never ratified Agenda 2030 as required by the U.S. Constitution. So where these people think they get the authority to do this stuff, I have no idea. My guess is they know they don't have it. But folks, again, scratch the surface, and what you'll find is this bizarre promotion of New Age, global spirituality, one world religion from the pit of hell, and they're trying to mainstream this. They're trying to indoctrinate your children into this through programs like social-emotional learning. Go back and watch our episode on that. Mindfulness schemes in public schools. One critic of this who has researched the phenomenon, she contacted me and told me that this global citizenship education is necessary as an element of global spirituality. It's a means to an end, right? So we're going to turn the kids into global citizens so that they can then adopt the one world spirituality. Also, folks, pay really close attention to the people involved here, right? You got all these shrinks, these psychiatrists, these people involved in neuroscience, right? They want to do the equivalent. You know, the Soviets called it creating the new Soviet man, right? They recognized that human nature was not suitable to this totalitarian system where everybody would just work as like a good worker drone, a good worker bee, a good slave without asking too many questions. So they want to use neuroscience now. They want to use SEL to give your kids new values, new beliefs, to really transform the nature of who they are, regardless of what you want as a mom, as a dad, as a family, right? They are manipulating your kids, and they're so open about it. They say they're going to give your children a kinder brain. They're going to give them pro-social behavior. Who do they think they are? What does pro-social behavior even mean? Are you saying that children right now have antisocial behavior? This is crazy stuff, folks. They admit that they want to use so-called education, and I'm quoting here again, for transforming, shaping, and rewiring the minds of these children, okay? And frankly, my children are not for you to change, transform, shape, rewire, right? Get away from my children's brain, okay? This is ridiculous, folks. So the UN paints this as like this wonderful thing. There's no risk. It's all going to be just happy fun. We're going to be a kinder, freer, sustainable world. And that is absolute baloney, folks. It's just so crazy. So again, they're very open about the way they want to restructure the brains of children, of adolescents. So the UNICEF Adolescent Brain, a second window of opportunity, right? This is from the MGIEP Global Citizenship Curriculum. It's designed for 12 to 14-year-olds, and it's based on the understanding of neuroscience and psychology of how adolescent brains learn. So, folks, this is what they're telling you openly, okay? This is not Alex Newman from some Behind the Deep State show telling you. This is them telling you. I'm just telling you what I found on their website. This is beyond creepy. They want to recruit and groom your children to become global citizens in a one-world order with a one-world spiritual agenda that is diametrically opposed to Christian principles, to Christianity, to American principles, to our system of self-government. Frankly, if we allow them to do this, shame on us, right? Of course, tyrants want to do this. This is what tyrants have always wanted to do. But what will you do, mom and dad? Will you allow your children to have their brains rewired to be pro-social, whatever that means, right? This stuff is really nefarious, folks, and we're only scratching the surface. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman. This is Behind the Deep State for the New American Magazine. Until next time, God bless you all.
Sophia paused before the door. It read, Department of Bidigital Convergence. Just inside was a new world, a better world, the one of everlasting life, of no pain, of no loss, of no problem. She entered the chamber and her surroundings changed. She saw around her an infinite field of waving golden grain surmounted by cloudless blue sky. The AI voice whispered gently in her mind, Welcome to the singularity. She couldn't see it and couldn't feel it, but her body had almost instantly been covered by a swarm of tiny gray multi-legged bots that melted through her clothes and into her skin. Not perceiving the nightmare, her eyes had already been consumed and the rest of her body was dissolving as the bots digested her flesh. She felt only a warmth suffusing her being. Drowsy, she drifted to sleep, and her last thought was one of panic. Would she ever wake? Could a nightmare vision like this be an outcome of the much-hyped transhumanist technological singularity? Enter the world of the future as illuminated by the experience of the past in Endgame, the new book by Dennis Barrett, the publisher of the New American Magazine, and find out how the disastrous COVID pandemic response fits with the technocratic elite's thirst to create a transhumanist utopia. Get Endgame from shopjbs.org with free shipping with code ENDSHIP, ENDSHIP. Or get Endgame and the Great Reset Collector's issue of the New American Magazine and get free shipping plus an additional 20% off both with code END20, END20.